morning, everyone. Welcome to this week's Facebook Live AMS call. Today is May 30th, and we are finishing a strong May and looking forward to jumping into June to finish up our first half of the year. Today we have a lot of great things on the call. Sean Ruggiero is actually doing 2 agent interviews, one with David Allen and one with Jack Yeo, as well as a classroom session in between covering index returns and participation rates versus caps. So stay tuned in, and we look forward to giving you some great information today. I have our weekly numbers for IULs. This is week 21 issue paid. We have Bradley A with 391, Crystal P with 2,652, Don S with 6,940, Dylan S with 1,141, Frank D with 1,489, Joyce V with 1,648, Renee B with 408, Alexander S with 861, Gregory M with 3,352, Juan V with 5,998, and Sacramento J with 1,243. Great week on IULs, you guys. Next up, we have annuities. This is issue paid from May 16th to May 22nd. We have Nadine L with 326,380, Skylar S with 293,955, Danielle B with 290,413, Spencer F with 199,423, Alan C with 140,000, Matt S with 137,745, Patricia G with 103,908, Michael B with 100,000, Al V with 100,000, Keith C with 92,758, Zach T with 86,611, Janice H and Skylar S with the split here for 75,000, Cynthia S with $74,013, Phil R with 68,931, David E 66,453, Jeannie O with 65,700, Keith C again here with 58,353, Mark K with 50,000, Jim O with 50,000, Linda L with 48,768, Carl V and Mark P with a split here for 42,390, David P and Daniel B with a split for 42,153, Jonathan W 25,000, Josh M 16,963, James B and Heather B with a split here for 15,000, Tyson J with 13,125, Lance N with 10,000, and Don S with 7,300. That brings our total for just 1 week of annuities issue paid to 2.6 million. We have 32 million pending currently with Athene still, so that is a great number to be issuing every week. That number is just growing and growing. I love seeing the splits on the board because that means you guys are out there helping each other in the field, supporting each other, and that's exactly why we designed this. So I'm super excited to see you all using that. That's all I have for you guys this week. We'll see you next time. Have a great weekend.
All right. Good morning. David Allen has joined us from California. David is one of the more recent additions to Family First Life and is bringing a lot of horsepower to the annuity side. David, thanks for joining me today.
Thank you, Sean, for having me.
Absolutely. So to date, you've been with us for how long? For 3-4 months now?
Not even that long, actually. This, I think, is week number 7 that I've actually been submitting business. Maybe just over 2 months after I got everything appointed.
That sounds right. That's awesome because I think you've submitted. Help me if I'm wrong on this, but maybe $3 million in annuities in just this 2-month period.
It's actually over 4, getting close to 5 by the time I get done submitting for this week.
That's awesome. See how I make you look even better because I keep underguessing. You're welcome. Well, and obviously that's grabbing some attention. It's grabbed my attention. People that have been working around you know that you have bringing a lot of knowledge and a lot of things that, hear me out on this. It might sound a little confusing, but I don't want people to think because you do have an idea of what you're doing that it's intimidating or not replicatable. I also want them to be able to learn, just like you learned over the years of working with people and helping them with financial planning, that this is things they can get better on, and here's some of the fundamentals. So you've been here for a couple of months, you've submitted over $4 million in annuities. Obviously, people are going to want to know, how and why, and I appreciate you sharing that. But we had gone over a couple of things previously in preparing for this call that I want you to share with the agents. So I'm going to give you most of the time here. I might ask you a few questions, but starting with number one, you talked about agents and the clients deserve more. And I love the sound of that. They deserve more, because we always want to get what we deserve. And I think to a certain aspect, that's what I try to get the agents to believe. You deserve more. Don't settle for just going in and writing a $50 a month final expense policy. You deserve more. Help these people out. But then to also add in the layer that the client deserves more. Tell me a little bit about that.
Yeah, absolutely. And yes, you're absolutely true. There's no aspiration on my part to make me feel like I'm better or not better than somebody else. This is just a learning curve and understanding my why, which is really where the deserve more comes from. So what I mean by that is, if you sit down and you talk to somebody about why they're in this business, a lot of people are going to say, for example, that they see an opportunity to make more money and help their family, and that's great. We all have that as part of our why. We have a goal to do there. But when I can cause some people to start thinking about the other side of the table, which is you're sitting with a client and they deserve your best. You're there, you should be preparing as a professional so that you can give them not only what they want to hear, but also what they may not be expecting to hear, which is we're here to give them absolutely everything that we can do in our power so that they can understand that we are here for them. So a recent training in my office really circled around starting to get people to understand what that why look like, and that clients do deserve more knowledge, more attention, more ability, more communication skills, all of the above, so that they feel comfortable saying, I like you guys, I trust what you're bringing to the table, I like the product illustration or illustrations you brought me, and I'm more than willing, because you've made me feel comfortable about it. You made me feel like I deserve to be in the right place for the right reason. And it really helps to smooth out a meeting with any prospective client or any current client that might have a question. When you make them feel like they are absolutely your world whenever you talk to them, like they are completely deserving of your attention, I have found in my experience that it's much easier for them to give me that yes answer, or say I agree, or cause them to be more comfortable even asking their questions. Because some people get a little funny. I'm not, I feel stupid, for example, asking this question. There is no
Right.
stupid question. It's something that people need to know. That's why it's a question. So when you make them feel like they're absolutely the cherry on top of the ice cream, so to speak, they feel really good about working with you or me or whoever it is that we're working to get to that level. So that's really what I mean by deserve more. What I do is I challenge agents to understand that their purpose is not solely to take care of themselves. Their purpose to take care of themselves starts with properly taking care of the people on the other side of the table that they're meeting with.
Yeah, I think of relationships and what we learn, whether you're reading a book or hearing something from other people who have successful relationships, things like marriages, things like friendships. You can't go into it saying, I want, right? You have to go in it and saying, how can I help you? How can I make you feel good? And sometimes it's little subtle things, and sometimes it's really maybe not grandiose, but larger effort involved, things that can show that person that you care about them. And I think that's important, David. And that's kind of a pleasant surprise for me, because we get down to business and we talk about, hey, here's your sales pitch and here's your segue. And I use this brochure, I show this graphic, and that really gets them thinking about protecting their money or whatever the approach might be. And you're saying before you do anything else, you need to think about how, preparing. I heard you say that. I wrote that down. And making them feel like they're the most important thing in the world, because guess what? For them, they are, whether they like themselves or not. I'm still the most important person in my family's financial future. And I think that's important. Second thing we talked about was teeing up the close. okay, and you have kind of a spin on using a T to compare where the client is now to what a safe money retirement plan might look like. Can you explain a little bit more about that?
Yeah, absolutely. It's a continuation of a prior call on the Level Up call. I was asked to talk about that as well. Back from my days in the accounting and income tax world, basic accounting 101 starts by teaching people how to balance books. Well, their explanation starts with a letter T. You literally just draw a large letter T on a piece of paper. And then across the top of the bar, on the left side, I'll actually write down where you are now or what you have now. And down that left side of the T, I'm going to list the pertinent items about wherever the client is now, things that I want them to focus on that I think they need to consider. On the right side, the heading's going to be our safe money retirement system or our safe money retirement plan. And I'm going to talk about the product or products I might be bringing to the table. So for example, if you got somebody that's in a variable annuity, for example, and they're really concerned about market volatility and they want to look at options, I'm going to start by listing on the left side under what they have now, you're in a variable annuity product. On the safe money side, it's an indexed annuity or it's a fixed index annuity. And then I start to break down what each of those represent. And basically what the T does is it just gives me a visual for them to compare their product to our product. So the next thing I might talk about would be the volatility in the market. It's variable, you're in the market, which means there's 100% risk of loss, and you own this product, it's yours. It's not going to be your financial advisor or your securities broker's responsibility to make sure you don't lose. You know, it'd be nice if they did, but they have thousands and thousands of clients. They don't look at anybody individually. By comparison, I'll then comment the product I'm bringing to the table, what I'm going to show you, it's a fixed index product. It's guaranteed not to lose.
Mhm.
So as I'm walking down the various different points, I'm taking the point that they're concerned about, which is volatility, and I'm comparing it to our product, which says there's no volatility. I might then talk about fees. So a variable product, you're going to have some load fees, front end or back end, management, you know, M&E fees,
Right.
financial advisor fees, whatever it would be. By comparison, we can show them that they may be in the 1.5% to 4% range on their side. I had a client who actually had a variable annuity that they had just acquired in January this year, 600,000 in, and their front end load fees were 50 grand
Mm.
before they even got their first statement. And they didn't even know until they saw their first statement
Right.
because they weren't advised. By comparison, I can talk about the fact that we don't have those fees. The management fees aren't there. Any fee is only going to be related to a guaranteed lifetime income rider or additive product. And our fees are typically going to be less than one, and they're not coming to us. They're going to the company that's going to be managing for them. So I can show them what they're going to save right there. I'll then talk about whether or not there's lifetime income versus us, where there's the possibility for it. And I'll walk them right down. The next thing I do after I've listed all of those points is I'll spin the paper around and I'll hand them my pen and I'll ask them which side they like better. So for example, there's the variable annuity versus our fixed annuity. Do you like having volatility or do you like having no volatility? When they answer, I like no volatility or, you know, less risk, I
Mhm.
ask them to circle no risk on the safe money retirement side. And I'll ask that against every single item, fees versus no fees. I don't know too many clients that have said I like paying fees. So that
Right.
one's kind of easy. So when they say I like paying less fees, I ask them to circle the less fees or no fees on the safe money side. By the time we're done, I can literally look at that and say, okay, so if we compare, you just shown me because you've been actively participating with me, you like the safe money retirement side for all the benefits we're bringing to the table. So it looks to me like you're very interested in moving your money and better protecting it so it's there when you need it down the road. Are you ready to get started? And I've led them right down to the yes answer that I want, which really protects them more, gives them the deserving balance that we want to bring to the table, and allows me to start putting together an app so we can move their money.
Yeah, no, that's excellent. That's excellent. And I think one of the things that you're hitting on there that we need to do a better job with, that we try to accomplish with, say, the trifold,
Mm-hmm.
is creating visuals. And a visual, when you write it down like that, that is the spine or the backbone, the foundation of a very simple financial plan. And we tend to serve the underserved. And that doesn't mean that we deal with people who have no money. I honestly, David, think that if you're going into retirement now with people living longer than ever, husband, wife, even $1 million isn't that much. And so there's great opportunity here, but a lot of financial advisors traditionally are approaching things with products that were designed. And I talk about this over and over again. We get a commission from the insurance company. And the idea is as long as the person doesn't take out too much, die too early, or cancel it, then we will keep that commission. We're paid totally differently than someone who is selling securities products. They could either be charging a fee, but oftentimes it's a fee plus commission, and still it is dominated by commission. So those load fees are there for a reason, because they got to find a way to pay commissions. They're not pooling assets. They're creating transactions, and the fees come out of the middle. So inevitably there's going to be those fees, and pointing that out without sitting there and trying to analyze, what ticker symbols have, what load fees, things like that. A lot of those variable annuities, especially that we have people are transitioning over, are ripe for a comparison. And something that Matt Smith found early on in his sales that I adopted was the idea that most of the time people were willing to pay those fees because they wanted the guarantees. Well, why is the FIA the fastest growing retirement product, the fastest growing annuity, which according to LIMRA will overtake the variable annuity by 2021? Because it's given them the same or better guarantees without the same fees. And that's what people want. Excellent stuff. One other thing, we talked about this in the pre-interview, talked about practicing to learn how to have a conversation that leads a client to say yes. You talked about that with the with drawing of the T, and I wrote my notes down here, drawing the T, what they have now, what they have later, and you're going to unearth something. You're going to unearth that they have exposed risk, they have fees, they don't have guarantees. One of those three things I think are going to come up at a minimum. But what else can an agent do to practice that conversation leading up to it? What steps can they do to prepare for a meeting?
Well, that's a great question, Sean. And one of the things that I have coached on that I'm a big advocate for is, for example, using a mirror. But Family First Life, like when I first came on, you got your scripts for setting your appointments. That's the basis. That's the starting point for learning how to have a conversation, because we're all coming with a license, or they're getting a license and coming on board, whatever the case may be. But we start them with a script. The fastest way to become comfortable with the script is to sell yourself that you're saying the right words. So what I've done is I've actually suggested to people that they take their scripts, they find a mirror, and they look at themselves while they're actually stating and saying and practicing what's on those scripts. Mm-hmm. So if you can start to feel comfortable seeing yourself doing this, then your time on the phone for your dial days becomes 100% easier to do, because you don't have this concern about what people think, because you already know what they're going to think. This is a great product, and I'm very comfortable putting forth that conversation. The other thing I do is I'm a big advocate of doing the research, understanding the products, but more importantly, having things to talk about. So I want to read things online. I want to read the newspaper articles. I want to hear the news. I want things that are common knowledge that I can take my level of professional ability and put it forth to that. So you talked about a couple minutes ago, the fact that $1 million saved for retirement really isn't that much. I read the study last year where the models changed. It used to be that 4% was considered the norm. And you've got a 95% likelihood that $1 million may not run out during your retired years. The model's changing. I've read some studies that are suggesting 4% should be 3%. Well, 4% to 3% doesn't sound like much, but if you just do the basic math, taking 1% away from 4% means you're taking away 25% of their cash flow. Mm-hmm. So when you take a half a second to talk with compassion and very humbly about that, they start to understand that you're really thinking about where they're at and what they're going to need. And if they need $55,000 a year in retirement and they're projected to have 35 to 40, we've got a little bit of work to do to try and bridge that gap, either by showing them how to cut expenses or how to find a better product for them than where they're at. So For me, becoming the consummate professional, having that knowledge at the tip of my tongue so I can have a conversation that people feel like they're just talking to me versus here's this guy that's sitting across the table that sounds like he's been around for 100 years and he's making me nervous. I don't want my clients to be nervous. And to that end, I've heard Paul McLean on a couple of calls actually talk about the fact that he's mentioned to the people at their appointments that it doesn't matter to him if they do business with him or not. What matters is that they do what they need to do to protect their families. It's a great line. It's a good conversation piece. And I use this same line and on the safe money side. You guys can move your money, you can not move your money, but what I'm bringing to the table is going to allow you to have that money down the road if that's what's really important to you. And what you've told me is it is. And I'll just continue to find the way to have a very relaxing conversation so that they're comfortable saying, yes, I want you to move my money to Athene or America or wherever we want to take it to, that we think is going to do much better for them than where they're at. So I really want people to focus on becoming comfortable with that conversation. So whether it's by starting and talking in a mirror to yourself, whether it's calling somebody like you or me saying, give me 3 minutes to walk through a conversation so that they can hear people who know how to do it, work through it with them so they've got the right thing to say. I want them to understand that it's not going to be the entire 5 minutes that causes somebody to say no. It's going to be the 1 or 2 words you use that were deal breakers for the client. So the other thing that I do is I request all of my agents when they're done with an appointment, whether they close or not, I want them to call me no matter what time of the day or night it is. And I want them to tell me how that appointment went so that if something didn't go well, I can figure out what those words were that they need to eliminate at their next appointment.
Yeah.
If something went well, maybe it took 30 minutes and I can show them how to do it in 20. So I want to find out ways to make that conversation stronger, tighter, more succinct and faster for them so that they can get everything done that they want to do. And the client feels good because you got it done very quickly and they didn't feel like they were rushed.
Yeah. I think one last key thing to add is that this is a game of reps, right? You got to practice to get better, and then you got to play to get better. And, don't fall on your sword and say, I'm no good at this because you don't go, you don't move the first 3 people that you talk to. You're going to get better and better, especially if you prepare like you're talking about, you use visual aids, you treat the client like they're the center of your universe, because at that moment they are, and that's, I believe, I think that's still one of the best things I've heard in a long time, because we get away from that, David. And putting those things together and practice them and making a commitment that you're going to help every client you can, and whether the result is yay or nay, you're going to get better, and then eventually be moving $4 million in a month or in 2 months, like you have. So, hey, really proud to be working with you, David. Thanks so much for joining us on the AMS Live here. We'll be looking forward to hearing more from you in the future. Take care.
Thank you, Sean.
Good morning, everyone. This is Sean Ruggiero. Thanks for joining us on the FFL AMS Live here on Facebook. I want to talk about indexing, but as it pertains to caps and participation rates that we use with fixed index annuities. Okay, so the whole idea is this: with a fixed index annuity, you get to participate in some of the upside and none of the downside. That's the whole pitch. That's the idea. And I think it's important to reinforce the idea that an FIA, a fixed index annuity, is a protection product first. Preparing people to not lose money in retirement is the number one goal. The gains we can get above and beyond that is number 2. What separates fixed index annuities from, say, bonds or a savings account or CDs is that they have higher earning potential. And that has actually become more true with the introduction of participation rates versus caps. So you'll see a graphic here. It's called the history of the S&P 500 index, comparing the S&P 500 index returns from 1997 to 2016, but then also comparing that to what a 5% cap and a 45% participation rate would be. This was actually provided by one of our new annuity partners, Guggenheim. So thank you for that. I've also been putting this out on text, or excuse me, on Twitter, Facebook, LinkedIn. So if you aren't following Safe Money Smart, that's Safe Money Smart, please do. I send this information out on a daily basis. A lot of it is consumer facing. In fact, almost all of it is consumer facing. So you can use it to educate yourself, but also to educate clients, consumers, and find out who needs help in their retirement planning, who would benefit from a fixed index annuity or any annuity. So the S&P 500, you can see here, was up in 1997, a whopping 31%, then up 26, up 19. There's never been a 3-year run better than that, for the record. So it would have been a great time to retire. Agreed? Of course. But then in 2000, 2001, 2002, there's been very few 3-year periods that are worse than that. It's kind of funny how that works. The best high, the best low, and they're back to back with each other. And then a 26%, a 9%, 3, 13, all the way up to 2008. Almost 40% drop in the market, and then you can see the returns as it goes there. So overall, there is a gain. The average gain is 7.5 something. I'm going to show it to you in a second. But there are ups and there are downs. There are more ups than there are downs, which is good, and that's why people leave the market. The 5% cap, you can see very easy to understand. When the market is up, you get up to 5%, and when the market is down, you get no loss. And really, what the downside is to a cap is exactly what it says. It's a cap. You really are going to miss out on the big years. Now, I'm not saying that someone who is retired is going to participate in all this gain. I'm not going to say they'll be buying and selling at the exact right time. But to a certain extent, it doesn't matter, because you can't argue that a 5% gain is better than a 31% gain. It's not even the same stratosphere. So you're buying this as a safety product. And when fixed index annuities first came out, that's what they were built around. They were built around caps, and they were a very conservative product. They were slightly outperforming bonds and CDs. Well, probably a little bit more on CDs, but outperforming bonds. But that changed with the introduction of the participation rate. So the participation rate is you get some of the upside, but you get a percentage. Now, technically speaking, that is why they call it uncapped. You can get an uncapped amount. So if the market goes up 50% and you get half of it, you get 25%. The reality is this. The reality is it does allow you to have higher upside returns, to get those double-digit returns. And if you see here, this is a very conservative 45% participation rate on an S&P index. In 1997, rather than capping out at 5%, you would have then had 14%, and then 12% and 8%. But then when the market had its 3 worst years, you would have lost nothing. So you can see the advantage to that. So what I did is I put together this very simple calculator for you to use with clients. Over here, we have the S&P 500 and the returns that I showed you on the graph. We then have the S&P with a 5% cap, and then we have a 45% participation right here. But what I want to point out is this. First and foremost, it's all about when you retire. That's why we have this sequence of returns risk. So let's say hypothetically someone puts in $100,000. They're drawing out $5,000 a year. What will they have? Well, 100K minus 5,000, but then add 31%, they're up to 124,000. Take out another 5,000, but then add 26%, they're at 151. Take out another 5,000 and add almost 20%, you're at 174. So your money is growing in spite of taking money out and in spite of not putting any money back into it because the market is hot. But let me show you something. What if instead of retiring here in 1996, you retired 36 months later in 1999? To emulate that, I'm going to type in $100,000 and hit enter. So now your starting point, you take out the $5,000, you're minus 10%, you're left with 85. Well, you didn't take out 15 grand, but you're down 15 grand. That's a pretty scary way to start your first year of retirement. Now, you take out another 5 and you're down 13%, you're down to 69. And then the third year, you have less than half of what you put into it. And you can see that you darn near run out of money around 2015. So that's only about 13 years into your retirement that you run out of money. 23 years. And if you retire at 65, that means you better be dead by age 87, 85 years, or 88 years old. That's a scary, scary idea. But that is what sequence of returns risk is. So let's bring in the 5% cap. Well, the 5% cap is going to do this. It's going to make sure that in those down years, you lose nothing. The problem is this: if we compare these as a total average annual return, the 7.36% is much more appealing than a 3.33%. Yes, we have plenty of money, but we really didn't have a chance to outgain the market, and we didn't really have a chance to recoup a lot of what we're drawing out. So a very safe product, but that gave the evolution to the participation rate. So the participation rate here, and again, I'm using a very conservative 45%. Now we have the potential for higher upsides with every bit as much protection against the downsides. And so with the evolution of the participation rate, you can see even here with a conservative 45% participation rate, it yielded 5.24%. That's about 2 percentage points higher than this and closer to what the market yielded without any risk of that sequence of returns or losing money. See, if I went to 1999 and retired right here, you can see I still don't run out of money, not even close. So emulating the same scenario, which if you timed it wrong could lead to you running out of money too early, you have protections from sequence of returns risk when you're using a product that has indexing that removes the chance that you lose the money when the market goes down. Now, what I'm going to do also is show you a more recent participation rate. We're seeing a lot of participation rates from Athene in the 55%, some of them even as high as 65%, depending on the index. And on the 2-year, they're going up to 100% in some cases. So if we look at a 55% participation rate, look how much this changes, right? Now we're up to 6.4%. We are less than 1% behind the market and have all the security that we would ever require from market downturn. So the question is this. The question is, how much more are you wanting to gain? And how much were you willing to lose for that? We talk about this over and over again, that we're not dealing with investors, we're dealing with savers. The problem is these savers really have no other guidance other than the idea that someone who was managing their money previously in, say, a 401k or a 403b or a 457 has transitioned their money over into an IRA. And in that IRA, the products they choose are going to be the products they sell. I've given the analogy of a car dealer. A car dealer is going to sell you the cars they have. Does that make them bad people? No. Does that make them evil? Absolutely not. They're selling what pays them and what makes them money and what they have in inventory. Most financial advisors don't use fixed index annuities. They use variable annuities. Well, variable annuities, just like the market, have the ability to go down and are very costly in fees. And they will offer guarantees, but those guarantees always end up net being something that is a diminished guaranteed lifetime income return, meaning it isn't going to guarantee as much lifetime income as a fixed index annuity or as an income annuity, or some sort of death benefit guarantee, which a death benefit guarantee doesn't do a whole lot for you if you need that money for long-term planning, long-term care, or anything that is an expense along the way. So there's a reason why LIMRA reports that the fixed index annuity is going to surpass the variable annuity by 2021. And a lot of that has to do with the introduction of participation rates versus caps, making these things not only safe vehicles, but making them much more potent for the accumulation that they can offer. So if anyone needs a copy of this, we'll have it posted at the fflams.com website under the resources tab. Thank you, everyone. Make it a great week.
Hey guys, this is Linda Lampasso out of Colorado. Thanks so much, Sean, for having me on the call today. I'm really happy to be here to talk to you about what this business means to me. And when I got to really thinking about it, there was no way that I could talk about what the business means to me without including Family First Life in that. So this business anywhere else would never be the same. So with what we have in place with our systems and our culture and the lead generation, the carriers, everything we have going on, and the foundation that Sean Mike has put in place for all of us is really the only reason I can talk about what this business means to me. But personally, for me, this business is about knowing that I can take care of myself entirely, right? So from a financial standpoint, I think so many of us, we strive for that. We want to make sure that we're independent and that we can take care of ourselves, at least from a woman's perspective. And for me, that's where I'm grounded in this. And this idea that I control how much money I want to make. The sky is the limit. You know, the only limitation placed on me is going to be the limitation I place upon myself. And so that's what I've always loved about the playing field at Family First Life. And this idea that there's never any judgment. You know, there's nobody telling you what you have to do and how you're going to do it and how much of it you're going to do. It's always linked to what your own personal goals are. And for me, that's always been the case. So when I think back, and especially for me over the last couple of years, these have been the most challenging years of my life. And to be able to look at that and say, okay, well, what would have happened if I wasn't here, if I wasn't in this business? Where would we be? Where would our family be? You know, if I was answering to a boss or if I was in a corporate position somewhere, having some of the tragedies, you know, that have gone on for us over the last couple of years and the aftermath of that, I likely would have lost my job. I would have been on the streets. Instead, you know, this business has allowed me those freedoms to take time if I needed to go back out that next week and hustle a little harder when I could. But it's on my terms, nobody else's terms. And the culture that we have here at Family First Life, and this idea that, you know, I want to help people. You know, I come from a background in social work, and this is just an extension of that. Not only can I help people in the field, you know, the families that I'm able to help and the really hard decisions that I'm able to help people make, decisions that they might not have made if I hadn't been there to be able to transfer my energy, you know, with theirs and help them with that process. It is really what stands out for me. And then that carries over when we look at our culture within the company and how we're going to help other agents. And for me, my focus has really changed over the last couple of years. When I first got into this business, what drew me to it? It was tangible. Essentially, there was a lead, somebody sent in the information, and all I was going to do was call them up. So that was a no-brainer coming from real estate, you know, when things weren't so tangible. And it started out about, you know, this money-making, you know, cow, for lack of a better word. It was just going to be all about money, and we were going to get as much money as we could, and we were going to have the savings and pay off our debt, and very ego-driven early on. And over the last couple of years, it's been a little bit humbling for me. So my idea of success has changed. So for me, it's more about how can I serve others now? And maybe I'm not going to be driven by how much money necessarily I'm making, but more so, how can I serve others? And can I get out there and continue to just do what I know how to do and help people in the field, help agents? And when you really identify where, you know, what your why is and why you're doing this, why you're continuing to do this, and for me, why am I still here? It's because I'm still driven to serve. And why am I with Family First Life? Because above all else, the culture, the family that we have around the country, the support that's always there. And even if there aren't words spoken, there's an energetic field that we can tap into, and there's a connection that we all have as human beings, and especially within our culture at Family First Life, and all you have to do is tap into it. And for me, the more I do that, the more I have an underlying strength that when life throws those curveballs at us, and we're all going to get them. Obviously a lot of you know, for me, I lost my only sister, my best friend. She was an agent with us. That changes your life. That changes who you are as a person. I know other people within Family First Life have had devastating losses, and somehow we have to keep moving forward, and your kids are going to get sick, and accidents are going to happen, and you're not going to feel good, and you're going to have to go through testing for yourself or whatever it is. What keeps us going during those times? It's hard to sometimes put that into words. One thing I can say is not losing momentum. So even those days I maybe don't feel like crawling out of bed, or in the past didn't feel like crawling out of bed, who's watching? Mike Killamit posted something that was just a crazy reminder. It was essentially, I thought about quitting, but then I thought about who was watching. And that doesn't mean for me, all the other agents in the company. It was more for me, my children. My children are watching. They're noticing, hey, Mom, you're not working as much as you were before. What's going on? And for me, it's about, what do I want to show my kids? Do I want them to see that when life gets rough, we're going to hide under the covers and we're going to lose everything? Or do I want them to see, yeah, when life gets rough, it's tough. It's hard to get out there in the field. But we find a way to do it. We take care of ourselves. We work out. We meditate, whatever we need to do. We plug into our mentors. That's what I've done. And it works out. And the knowing that we are always going to be taken care of. And for me, that's how I've been able to push through it and continue on to have success here at Family First. So I hope that's helped, guys. And again, Sean, thanks so much for having me. You guys have an awesome week.